This video will show you how to replace the passenger side front CV axle assembly on a Chrysler 300. This will be located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground and the suspension is hanging. After that, we're going to continue on to removing the wheel by removing all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts, and we can get the wheel off of here. With the wheel off of there, we're focusing directly in the center of this area. We can see our brake rotor. In the middle is where our axle nut is. Use a 32mm socket to remove the axle nut. We'll use some penetrant. Continue on with a hammer and punch directly in the center of the axle. That's going to help break this free for us. Once you do have movement from here, we can continue on. Now we'll take that axle nut. I'm going to slide it over one of my studs here. Continue on with one of the lug nuts. This is going to hold the rotor in position for us so we can continue on to removing our brake caliper from the area. This is going to be done from the inboard side. Looking along the back side here, we can feel an 18mm bolt holding our caliper bracket to our steering knuckle, and the second one is located just below it. Let's go ahead and remove the pair. Once we have them out of place, we're going to take hold of the caliper. We're going to hang it aside, putting no pressure on our flex hose. There's one mounting bolt. Now that I have this out of here, after a quick inspection, I'm just going to start it back in a couple threads. That's going to help prevent this from falling on me as I continue on to the next mounting bolt just below it. Now, of course, to hang this caliper, we want to make sure we have some sort of hooked device. You can also use a bungee cord if necessary. Let's get this bolt out of here. Now, once you start removing the caliper, just make sure it doesn't look like the caliper's leaking and the brake pads aren't worn or damaged in any way. We'll set this aside. Now, if you are looking down along the bottom of the shock fork, you can see a clevis bolt. We're going to be using a 21mm for the bolt head, and on the rearward side, you're going to have a 21mm mounting nut. I'm using a wrench for the rearward side here. Now we can remove that mounting bolt. A thorough inspection. Set it aside. We're making our way all the way up to the upper ball joint next. You're using an 18mm for this mounting nut. After you have it loosened, start it back on a couple threads, and we're going to tap on the steering knuckle itself, causing vibration. It should break free and drop down. After that, we can remove the nut completely. Now you should be able to lift up on the knuckle, pull down on the upper control arm as necessary, remove that mounting nut. We'll start flexing this down, but we have to pay attention to our ABS wheel speed sensor wiring harness along the back side of the knuckle. You can see it right along here. Now this will just slide right out of position. After you slid that out, we'll continue on gently pulling this down and pulling the axle out of the back side of the steering knuckle. Now I'm using a long pry bar to gently pry this axle out of place. Let's make our way from underneath the vehicle. We should be able to get in between this area. Once it's popped free, we should be able to slide it out and away. Okay. So now that I have this broken free, we need to bring the axle shaft down in between this area. You're just going to carefully work it out of position. Be careful for any pinch points as you continue on. Prior to installation of any brand new part, of course, we need to make sure we clean and inspect our mounting areas. For this axle, it's extremely important to make sure you pay attention deep inside this area. There's an axle seal here. It needs to be in good usable order. If it looks like it's torn, worn, or damaged, it needs to be replaced. To clean this, I'm just using a clean rag. I'm not using any type of detergent which might make its way into the system. We know the seal is good. Let's make our way to the far outboard side. Now we're looking at the back side of the wheel bearing. Go ahead and give this a quick wipe, a thorough inspection as well. For this, essentially we just want to make sure nothing's rotted or weak. This looks good, we'll continue on. Now it's time for installation of the brand new front axle. For this axle, we need to make sure that the center of the shaft makes its way in between this area. Once it is up in between here, we're focusing on the inboard side. We need to align this so we can press it into the proper position. Now you may find that you can't press the axle in all the way. You might have to tap on it with a rubber mallet at the far end here. Now as I was tapping on that, I could hear an audible difference. That's telling me that I should be locked in, but we can't just trust that noise. Reach deep inside, take hold of the axle, and attempt to remove it. It should not slide out of position. Continuing on, let's bring this over so it's in the proper position. We're going to remove our axle nut. We'll slide the axle through our wheel bearing and continue on pivoting this up so we can align our upper ball joint next. Now we should be able to see the axle start making its way through here as we continue on. Let's continue bringing this knuckle over. We have the axle in the right position. Let's focus up along the ball joint and control arm next. At this point, you may have to raise the suspension and lower the control arm as necessary. Once you have that started on, snug it up and then torque it to 70 foot-pounds. Let's make our way all the way down to the bottom of the front strut. This is where we have our forked area. It's going to go over the lower control arm. We need to make sure this is aligned. You may have to raise or lower the suspension as necessary. We'll start in our mounting bolt, sliding it through from the front towards the rear. Start on the mounting nut. Now before we tighten or torque this, we need to make sure we bring our suspension into the original ride height position. I'm going to apply pressure under my front steering knuckle. Once you have it in that proper position, go ahead and snug it up and then torque that to 128 foot-pounds. Let's release pressure from under the suspension. We're continuing on to our ABS wheel speed sensor wire. We want to make sure it's mounted in along the back side of that knuckle. It needs to be secured so it's not hanging down where it could potentially get damaged in any way. Now we can get that caliper in place. We're going to make sure we slide our brake pads and caliper carefully over our brake rotor. As we slide this into position, we're aligning our caliper bracket mounting bolt ports. I've applied blue thread locker to each of my mounting bolts. I'm going to start each of them in, we'll bottom them out, and then torque them to 70 foot-pounds. Now prior to installing the axle nut, let's have a look at the backside of our wheel. Along in the center is where you're going to find a center cap. Lightly tap this out of place from the inboard side. Now that I have that off of there, we can install the wheel. Moving inboard, let's go ahead and remove our lug nut and our axle nut from this area. As we bring the wheel into position, obviously we still have to install the axle nut. We're going to do that once we have the wheel on and the wheel on the ground. We have the wheel back on the ground. Now we're going to torque each of the lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Let's move along to our axle nut next. Now as for the axle nut, we'll just go ahead and start it right into our 32mm socket. We're going to start this on by hand, snug it by hand too. We are not using an impact tool to tighten the nut, which could potentially cause damage to the axle or to the wheel bearing. Now we can torque that axle nut to 157 foot-pounds. Reinstall your center cap. Double check to make sure it's secured. Okay friend, we finished our installation. The next thing you have to do is pump up your brake pedal. Confirm it feels firm. After that, take your vehicle for a road test to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.